Inherency trumps through deportation, agenda, church racism, force against prosecutors, unchecked discretion towards the undocumented, 317 Trump, and his environment argument the president dictates towards immigration reports on renewal of terms, security, and enforcement, all states, inclusive person, subject, immigration recipients, death, crime, fear, rural tribes, immigration label, exacerbate already disproportionate impacts, immigration control, Latino Americans, U.S. immigration, every most highly racialized police force of the United States, plan, resolve, plea bargaining must be abolished in the United States criminal justice in cases regarding deportation sentences for undocumented defense by combination of both state and federal U.S. governments cooperating for plans to solve the disproportionate plea bargaining on the undocumented K-13 policymakers who fail to appreciate the return and free policies by non-citizens, immigration, enforcement, generates conviction operating on following former state or federal actions at both levels, most countries under appreciated consequences of current deportation policy, advantage towards deportations. Prosecutors are increasingly using plea bargains to take advantage of immigrants and forcibly deport people. The bargaining process both enables and incentivizes state coercion. Williams and Musgraves 17 such supporting federal prosecutors by bypassing immigration courts, punishment, administration, hardline deportation prosecutors are present and decide whether the rights to make a case by the country. Prosecutors will provide crimes of police may not allow to reach or deportation leverage. Prosecutors will plea bargain people have first abuse the absolutely should not be proposed as part of the agreement. Waiving a hearing in immigration court does not reflect on sentencing and convincing immigration judge. Them saying the country plea bargain gives prosecution immense power to defendants and incentivizes charging individuals even in the part of drug case against them. OT 14 the prosecution is capable of presenting a case with unconscionable pressure their chance of being corrected. You know, you're anything agreed legal deal like the criminal justice document you have work that can't be erased. Please also check your take a shot at the legal litigation no other while they're playing over this quality case report. That has hugely negative impact on the undocumented in particular and hinders immigration rights. Fuel 12. The government may completely forfeit your permanent residency as a victim of deportation, conviction, may also an applicant ineligible. This is particularly important for plea bargains. A plea bargain can also carry very serious immigration penalties. Fraud says the plea bargain may cause severe harm and friendly hardships for those who have immigration issues. This outweighs deportations, a massive crime against humanity. Concept threats deportations are relevant to people native racism, racism, xenophobia, and turning against vulnerable populations, undocumented immigrants. The United States campaign for thousands of undocumented immigrants just like on the popular world of legal aliens as the radical removing rapists and criminals, all against human rights, international criminal law, the human law, the law of war, regional complex law, a principle that deportations are crime against humanity, deportations a violation of right to life, family, property, privacy, and human other rights, international law, human rights, treaties, due process, fundamental legal principles that sustain the cause of the law. Advantage two is the right to trial. Affirming the right to trial in deportation cases is a key method of resistance against the CGF. President all 17 Mexicans are pushing an aggressive strategy of fighting like the deportation under our immigration to USGM. U.S. immigration courts approving a collecting already over interest to break down the idea that this is a drug trip the backlog until Trump says it's a stupid idea. Increasing trials for the plan would force a public conversation about CGS reform and eventually lead to decriminalization of Alexander. 12 Kamiak is subject to exercise conversion CGS massive conservation of the cooperation with controlled by one charge of crimes. Suddenly exercise the constitutional right there be not enough judges, lawyers, and personal steel being litigation. Not everyone has to run the road for the world that impact never. Double triple create force massive conservation solving gender apologies and lawmakers. The only show often scale back from politics or amend the constitution mass. Court is to enforce a public conversation and the act is negative state action, which link terms critique to the state Dempsey 9. Abolition reforms not defend laws power to reach to the laws being used for reasons other problematic ways. The proposed reforms would improve the system by limiting its scope now. Framework for adopting the perspective of the oppressed is the only way to account for dominant ideologies that skew our thought process. 6 meals. 5 ideas create the line of idealization of the actual ideas of social ontology has increased the actual head on individuals, possible original abstract way to realize it. Social domination, exploitation, fortune, and encouragement for honesty, the ontology of individuals, social characteristics of social institutions will begin centralized and ideal terms with little less sense of how their working system managed minority. The consequences of oppression will social domination that these will not be recognized, colonized, and self little attention. The role of the ideology supporting our attention. This is standard minimizing oppression. The role of the validates the only consequences of the act policy is the one that stays inevitable. Debating policies is the only way to create social change and make competent. 5 control of the government is what citizens read. Best citizen allowed to discuss what the government should be doing after that. Motivation, practice, laws, connected political cooperation, put that in simulation, power, kind of banning. Upon the case of generally matching social rebels, not the fancy, capital fancies, that are the other disabled actions, right? Using fund government power too. Legal debates are key to short-term survival of oppressed populations. Whether the law is good or bad, legal education is crucial to empowerment. Articles that allow 10 legal works necessary to critical movement to social justice and implementation of the legal system. Use that to the advantage of the oppressive global empowerment, low-income transparent people, code support these communities, promoting economic social policies that limit elections, looking for empowering these using our knowledge and expertise, help us to community legal system, try to get our opinion of that. So it takes on supreme significance, of course, politics and regulatory agencies, a system of intentionally obscuring the uneducated lawyers, helping us work the system. So those who seek to destroy, dismantle, and re-envision it, our communities are going to continue to have to navigate government agencies and organizations to survive. 3 oppressions created by social systems only focus on material conditions can solve Johnson. 1 privileges feature social systems, not individual state, race, accessible to the person outside is organized to assign basis, assign privilege on basis, socially finds that rich categories, those people are changed. The system that promotes a personal thing itself cannot be answered, limits no more solution for the cause of the winning, then military costs are solution for that isn't less than privilege for your prime million systems changing. So changes is simply a matter of changing people. The solution has to do with entire systems that shape how we feel, think, and behave for. It's fair to anything else with 6 months one, often forces at one area. So they get a 37 advantage because work discussion because the subject discussion slightly better. After it's not specific dialogue, very much to trigger that dialogue that way. So it's an argument to all parties here for opportunity for one side, more shape, but otherwise, respect to the other dialogue, just especially if you find one one side, that just divides them. So things like ropes, small G discourse, only plain subject matter, presses 97, a severance. I still have like a minute for you. A severance for him simply does not turn contribution once he's excluded, not taking over negative says you do it as alternative frame for teaching which gives the negative text laws on the ones he answer or some assumption different to be able to jettison. You may ban flawed things when not but negative parents problematic. But the contradiction, legitimate conditionality, assumption discretes a huge inequity. I'm gonna pull up some more cards.
Interesting.
Okay. So let's see after. Debating about policies does not affirm the legitimacy of the state, but rather allows for enhancement methods of interrogation and resistance and not even between everything is made within civic practice. Government television programs sources present as multiply constitute has important role to play to bring in the foreground that techniques for which powers practically enacted various tactics for unsettling situations is restricting existing conditions rather than rejecting the tinkering with what exists in specific context and complexity of politics and abuse of homogenizing the narrative and political engagement or abuse of total heroic projections continue struggles within government recognizing at the same time transform them as approach questions over simplification of power notices that we're skeptical about universally good about active solutions to political problems reorienting active engagement toward the besides political way the determination scripts are the withdrawals from power to fight and party position concerned because they decide political imagination action the critical realism of an ontological space for agency rooted upon practice and contingent configurations are possible ethical decisions include practical assessments of what is possible gauge political consequences and effects moves away from the universal restrictions rooted upon universal normativity and embraces mutual contingent conditions. I'll just email that part out.
What would just okay? Can you stop there then?
Yeah. Is it cool if I just put it in the body of the email?
Sure, dude. You do you. Let me know when it's sent.
Yeah, it's sent.
That was a naughty. Me and Zanani are like best friends. All right, ready to cross?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, let's talk about the 4 minutes of framing in the one I see.
Okay.
Specifically the Mills evidence. What does it mean to have the perspective of the oppressed?
What does it mean to have the perspective of the oppressed?
Yeah.
It means that we should take their perspective into. It's not that we adopt their perspective, rather we take it into account and factor it into our decision making.
How can you, as a white person, take into account the perspective of the oppression?
Well, the argument is that, for example, in the instance of the non-documented folk who are being oppressed, we should acknowledge that that is an important impact in our decision making processes.
Okay. Let's talk about non-documented folk being deported. Where is the what is the warrant in the aff that plea bargaining is the root cause, or not the root cause, but the main cause of it?
Sure. So in the first advantage, the Williams and Musgrave 17 evidence is really good. It says that the option to have a plea bargaining gives prosecutors way more discretion in how they convict people, and it also says that because of Trump's policy, deportation sentences are attached onto almost every single crime you can think of for a non-documented citizen or for someone who's not documented. So, for example, the OT evidence also.
What's the solvency in the first advantage as to why you actually decrease deportations?
Plea bargaining is a tool for prosecutors to forcibly deport people and banning it.
Okay, but that doesn't give me any reasons as to why you actually decrease
the
deportations.
abolishes plea bargaining.
Yeah, but so you say it's a tool, but you don't ever indicate that the tool is being used.
Yes, yes, I do. That's the inherent.
So give me some empirical evidence or just an argument as to
the
how.
Williams and Musgrave 17 evidence is saying that because of the new regulations passed by Sessions, that prosecutors are increasingly pushing.
Give me a number.
I don't have a number.
Okay, so there's no way to calculate how many deportations are actually happening because of plea bargaining.
I don't have a specific
number.
You say that you decrease
deportations, but there is no specific number by which you decrease deportations.
Well, it doesn't have to be a number, but every deportation that occurs as a result of plea bargaining would be stopped as a result of the act. That's pretty straightforward.
Okay, sure.
Obviously,
so even if deportations because of plea bargaining are stopped, what about deportations because of other causes?
Well, the Williams and Musgrave 17 evidence indicates that the right to trial specifically, because when non-documented citizens go to trial, they are empirically very successful at convincing the judge to let them stay in the country. The problem is that they never get access to that type of deliberation in a world of plea bargaining.
Okay, sure. So you're making all these claims. I think that you forgot I also know how to do LARP to some extent. Give me significance for at least one of these claims.
Wait, what do you mean significant? It impacts into oppression. Deportation is a
you have so you're saying it impacts into oppression because people are deported and that's bad.
Yeah.
You have no numbers that say how many people are deported. You have no solvency that says the AF decreases deportations by an irrelevant amount.
Having a number is not key. It says that a lot of deportations are occurring because of plea bargaining. Ending plea bargaining would get rid of that. I don't have a specific number, but it's a linear impact.
It's a linear impact, of course it is. Let's talk about let's talk about your argument that you justify severance terms.
Sure.
What's the warrant for this?
The process evidence indicates that just because you've proven some representational or for example framework argument in the app to be bad, that isn't a reason I should lose. Rather, that's a reason we should reject that method of evaluation and still evaluate the app under the alternative.
Okay. Okay, sure. Sorry. Okay, stop crop. Actually, you know what? Put crop right here. Order is going to be 2 off in case. Stop crop. I'm saving and uploading the doc right now. Starting with case, it'll be overview on case proper, then case framing.
So 2 off, half in order.
Case. Okay. And may, after case framing, go back to line by line.
What is this then? What is this then?
Oh, which one? I'm just following that. First thing. Oh, crap. Sorry for the technological difficulties. Two off, then case proper overview, case framing overview, and then case line by line. Actually, there's going to be some cards on case if part of this. So I'll sign this. Okay, let me know when y'all get it, and yeah. Oh, by the way, 325 is prep as well.
Okay. Hold on, let me just like set it up for us. Okay, I'm good.
Everybody good? First off, white people should have to disclose after non-white people, particularly black people, even if it's new. One, this is whiteness practices or how whiteness treats itself, whiteness background, and to experience and creates the world governing what somebody's can do while other bodies are put under stress. Ahmed. But we get stuck and endlessly caught up in describing what we're doing with whiteness, something what whiteness is doing. Whiteness is appears as a category through experience. This experience makes whiteness worldly. Whiteness is the very what that coheres to world. Whiteness becomes worldly as an effective reification. Whiteness could be described as an ongoing unfinished history which orients bodies in specific directions, depending on how they take up space. Whiteness is an effective visualization. Whiteness is real material and lived into. Whiteness operates by remaining unmarked after challenging invisibility. Whiteness otherwise will fold back into space. Silence fast. Whiteness one and pass it forward. Performative pedagogy can ask questions about points of issue or whiteness with us to the concept of whiteness being point or whiteness is perceived as named the norm in this way. It can ask those in positions of power to question their own embodied experiences, but everything that they encounter through the mode of performance. Whiteness functions in the dominant discourse of the unmarked center of cultural power. Performative pedagogy can question the normal, stable, inevitable actualization of race nutrient subverts the possibility in order to foreground and engage in such considered performances, create space for as soon as they take apart whiteness and embodies make discernible what is already. And 3, the silent secrets and hidden acts where keep the slave, the position of the slave. Whiteness relies on black individuals too, being a state of non-knowing to assert its power. The white idea relies on order of things and seen as has always been the bedrock ideological foundation of violent white supremacy. And 4 is the debatability to disadvantage whiteness and oppression act as superior or blocks to oppress bodies engaging in spaces and practices where we can actively engage in the one they see as deep and effective as one contributes to a strongly hindered by the system and practice of one they see which means in the form of 1 and 2 options of the affirmative can be evaluated or can be evaluated by being part of the structural pressure practice by the alpha means that your arguments are epistemic inflated so you don't have access to any sort of cross applications of the case proper or case framing onto the NC. And next off, when one is white, their identity is linked to the history of white oppression and hegemony. The factor they justify as white with no hesitation proves their comfortability when cannot solely announce their whiteness, and then some form white bodies must have their social position, their relationship of domination, their comfort, and even their beings destroyed. Not for 2K. For one of them, whiteness is
also invest in white supremacy witnesses a political term that emerged among European white ethics in the U.S. These European ethics that cast their lot with whiteness rather than that with those who had been determined as not white anything, or anyone who claims to be a white, even a white anti-racist identifying the history of European imperialism and racism. Whiteness is a sugar domination, but in our social relations, institutions, discourses, and practices, white people need to be willing to have their very social position, their very religions with domination, their very being even destroyed. I'm not suggesting and making white people, even those so-called retarded anti-racist whites, comfortable about their position and struggles. Whites cannot talk or just think through white centrist white supremacy that we committed to dying for other people just getting out of the way, and they must be willing to do it. What the people must be marginalized by the situation to do. There are internal conversations within communities which I do not think white people need to participate in which people struggle their inversions of society and how to go about achieving them are there. And the affirmative is predicated on the foundation of that also seeks on white bodies to be grateful for the resources and advocacy to the affirmative. This allows white people to value others and creates politics statement for non-white bodies. They have the burden of proving why their body and existence is key to the absence of advocacy and why the African work stands number 2K. White activism, especially in anti-racism, is predicated on an economy of gratitude. Being non-white is supposed to be grateful that a white person is willing to work with non-white people. We are supposed to be grateful that you actually want to work with us and that you want to give us resources and would like to know how you have resources and others do not. The structure of white supremacy known as anti-white racism also impacts the larger social world because it still makes white people and most white people non-white. Non-white people are forced to feel dependent and grateful to white people who will actually interact with us. We are made to feel that we are inferior and capable, and we really do need white people given all the resources that whiteness has and that white people get and control through white supremacy. There is an element of material truth in all this, and for good white people need to think of how their activism reproduces the actual structure of supremacy. Some not all white activists for us to be about, and they're in a double binary that we can do the opposite of them because they really care for the movement and they are tied to the critter of the ballot, or they are too attached to the ballot economy of gratitude and only care about money and not people the ab, and you must reject racism. That's a default, maybe 2K. The struggle against racism is a struggle we're going to take black constitutional movement has now led the answer in the House, especially not in mass to accept the racist universal side of serious industry, injustice, and violence when you're not found in the moral order, let alone a legislative order on racism, because racism signifies the exclusion of the other. The ethical choice commands the political choice that just society must be accepted by all. And this debate is not about producing scholarship. The best interest of suffering, but negative foregrounds the need to understand black suffering as a precondition for devising a political strategy and formulating public arguments. Section 10. Freedom is proceeded on intellectual by a more confronting question: what does it mean to suffer? Black intellectuals have done too much fostering better plans. If anything, we have surplus of plans. We do not have a language that adequately represents variance and quality of position suffering as pain blacks must bear. Singularity, proper illumination cannot speak to strategy. Departments respond to look alternative scenes in the mundane and diffusion of terror, being not that blacks pursue the wrong argument, but rather that they are disallowed from building arguments in the first place. From loving comes a grievance. What does it mean to suffer this challenge of giving expression to the inexpressible? And now case. I'm reading the cards now. Their influence from materialism and radical leftism is anti-black pornotroping. First, pornotroping strips a classic from blackness, which is a reason for the presentation the one you see is bad and should be rejected for ED 14. Pornotroping is the remainder of the law and violence linguistically staging simultaneous sexualization and brutalization of the female slave into pornotroping means the becoming flesh of the black body into bare life. The exceptions of slavery which we ontologizes the innate capacities and inner feelings of the enslaved, and ascription of enjoyment to the African violence becomes synonymous with shirtless pleasure. And it turns the case, it is a complete strategy. It's a complete solvency takeout and causes independent trauma disadvantage. That is an independent voter. The affirmative epitomizes the trick of time posting solvency and solutions there. The premises of the future yet achieved is problematic for black folks, specifically 115. The qualities of domestic and happiness in life itself need to the security of the alternative through this logic becomes unattainable without it. Political promises to provide this construction of the binary ensures the hegemony dominance of political hope into the honor existential rights and the terror of the ultimate states of decay, suffering, and death depends on binary response, solution, action, and action. In action now. Let's go to the case proper. First overview is Fiat is illusory. When you vote for affirmative, nothing actually happens. You don't actually change the material conditions of immigrants. You don't get away the impacts of the affirmative. It's any of the oppositions that you read also reason as to why you necessarily have to look to reps and performance links first. And this means that we take all your arguments about why only things like the posterior implication of the affirmative matter now, which means you can cross that argument to frame me now. Also offer your Hernandez carbon over to the act in general. The uniqueness of one's in trouble deporting immigrants of the ways he has already expressed a firm commitment to deporting immigrants, which means the AF is only a form that doesn't actually change anything, which also just means that you should be preferring the impacts of the one and see higher this right.
on now. Also, specifically, read, you should still have read significance for the app. You don't ever justify the number of deportations that you decrease or the number of deportations that are caused from plea bargaining means. We can't ever quantify your impacts or evaluate them now. Also, after covered evidence, we say that accessibility controls the internal link to access to this. You can also cross-apply this to the fairness offense. In fact, we impact our fairness. We say that fairness is often pursued at the only backs of black folks and debate specifically. Open for crossing.
Okay. Wait. Actually, can you send the document because I didn't read it? So many.
Sure.
Thanks.
It was just like everything after the first one card.
Can you resend it because I already closed it?
You want to start process or no?
I'll put it like that and
Still on prep or no?
see. No. Refresh my email.
It's sent. Again, minus the part that you should have been flowing.
So the file's corrupt.
Well,
I'll just tell me what to do.
everything after one. The second one card. Or after the first one card, so the second one card, everything down. And that's it. Everything else is explicitly marked in the document.
So you read the 2 warning cards?
I read like the one warning card. Everything after the first warning card down.
Gotcha.
Not really.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Okay, what is porno tripping?
Sure. This is the way that you take like impacts specifically related to black folks or other oppressed folks, and you essentially rape their stories, and you call for like using their stories to pick up a ballot. We say that that's
Why is that bad?
Sure. It's because you take their stories, you use them without permission, you use them to win rounds in places like debate, and you don't ever actually care about the real like lived experiences of those folks.
Okay,
This
so
is like
should the
proven
alternative
by the fact that like you disclose an
should
app
the alternative
about
should the
black folk,
alternative be
and then you hit a black person.
Niko.
So you're like, oh, maybe I'll do half about.
Should the alternative be that we don't discuss like deportations against immigrants?
It's not about just not having a discussion. You're creating a false dichotomy there. It's about the way that we have that discussion. That discussion should happen in a proper manner.
So how would you change the discussion of the app?
Sure, I would say that like the way that there are more like all of the links that we read in the 1 and C are.
I'm not asking about those links. I'm asking about corner tripping. What about the app is problematic in terms of corner tripping?
Sure, I think the way like you seek your solution through like I think the way that you like seek your solution through like state engagement and like these like plans that we know actually aren't ever going to be passed is probably pretty problematic. I also think that the way that like you do this as like a white male to win is problematic. The fact that you disclose an app about black folks and how people are being entrapped by people, and then when you hit a black
Niko, let's talk about the
first time in a
disclosure
tournament,
So
you change your app.
the third argument, you say silence and hidden, or you say that there's a debatability to that because I can't engage the EC. Is this just like a predictability argument about the fact that I didn't disclose means you don't know how to engage the app?
No, it's a lot deeper than a predictability argument. We say that like their practices which reify whiteness prevent us from actually being able to engage in it.
Why does the fact that the app reifies whiteness means you can't engage in it? Like
Sure,
you
I think-
critiques of whiteness all the time. It seems a pretty good way to engage the app.
I don't think that like that's it. I think you're conflating the two arguments, right? So the debatability argument is saying that when you engage in practices that reify whiteness, you necessarily exclude other folks, like black folks, from the debate space, and then that means that we're not able to engage with things like the affirmative, the offense.
Okay, let's look at the critique. Okay, so let's talk about. So where the link seems to be that the fact that I'm comfortable in my identity is bad. Why? Where do you prove that I'm comfortable in my identity? Where did I ever say that in the app?
So okay, you're definitely like you're definitely misunderstanding.
All right,
Right? It's not. I will. believe that. It's not an argument about whether or not you are like specifically comfortable with your personal identity. Rather, the way that you perform your identity in this debate space is what.
How do I? What way is that?
How many times do I like? How many different ways do I have to say or read? You get up as this white guy from Massachusetts. You read ass about black people. You hit a black debater for the first time in this tournament. You change your app. You're like, okay, now I'm going to read an app about people who are being reported.
What's
problematic about that is that
retelling what happened.
No, you take stories of people who are oppressed and have real lived experiences, and you tell them for a ballot. And then as soon as it becomes inconvenient for you, you change the story. That's what's problematic about it.
Okay, the only argument here is basically just that it's bad. I'm calling for the ballot. I'll start right.
No. Okay. You can think that's the only argument. Okay, my two end really easy.
Wait, why is the app necessarily asking on my body to be grateful for the app?
Sure, this is something inherent when you get up and you read a utility looks like. We're going to do this plan because we're going to make the world better for insert experience group.
Left. The sun is stopping now. Cool.
What's the order?
It'll be the theory shell case critique, or like the bad argument.
Okay.
So disclosure after that.
Yeah.
Right.
May not read everything in style,
sent out.
Alright, it was sent. Everyone good?
No, we're missing the phone.
Oh shit.
Or you can start. I'm fine with that. Come back in. It's perfect. Did you do it?
Someone like get the car.
I think he's looking back.
Oh, okay.
Just gonna have to wait.
Yeah.
I told you.
I was
By the time you walk to the bathroom, they done.
He went all the way upstairs in his sweater and get back.
Wait, because Devane is slow.
Oh, that's about man.
It's still in prep over there, Reed.
That's not what I'm doing.
Actually, I think you do an answer.
You know damn well it's no hot.
We're in Minnesota. You're asking me too
This is not college policy. You're not having
I went all the way to the lobby. I didn't know it was a bathroom right there.
Oh, lobby? On the second floor.
I know. Alright, what's the order?
The order is the disclosure shell case critique. I sent a document to you if you want to pull it up.
I know. I felt it when I was coming up the stairs.
Good, Devon?
Good.
Alright.
Wait, really quick, what did you say it was?
The disclosure argument case critique.
What order on case, sorry.
It'll be like an overview with extensions, then line by line.
Okay.
Alright, ready?
Let's do it.
First time we seen a Galloway, which is a fair shooter, critical impact means that all my offensive plays, I'm counter ball debating, white displays must disclose black players unless they're bringing new athletes and semis of like one athletes I need to plans to offset massive side by super activity short one air multiple these positions, so they probably have sideways and currently permanent ability to severity maybe make it very possible because always lose a huge about breaking new gives you a great shot at winning still two apathy cells if you have to people disclose new athletes just won't read them against black debaters so they can save it. That means debates involving black debaters will become stale generic which to reduce education also means we never introduce new survival strategies to improve education will turn your shell. Now he says this is whiteness but one point you call me up for whiteness with the debate and mark me and there's no reason why mark me period is key 2 and the logic of this card would be that I have to disclose every possible strategy often from the 1 year to everyone having a set of that's absurd going for debate now off the inter proper he says racial inequality but a point your inter can't solve it your interprets worse if I break new judgment will give you a treatment leniency others your shells conditionality multiple cases etc that gives black debaters more options to engage B-point we're in semis of like my kind of trips that I wouldn't be spreading out an inexperienced debater you have bids you can deal with a new after B-point C point disclosing a new after solve mass superiority exclusion flat people are excluded through systemic disadvantage from the activity the problem is that a lack of against new alpha it isn't difficult to get turns in the first place D-point generic all your offense generic transmit keys like Buddhist reform kind of any reason why learning is good would still respond to the athletes doesn't harm your offense E-point solve the FK person in the literature you could have done for ground F9 you get prep on the F that break after every anyway everyone wants to prep the big plan text in preparation for TOC also use reusability with brown structure because they don't change your burn structure and they can chill engage the F9 if you think the event changes the in the session we could have gotten publicly always marginal pieces or the vote out on the counter keep rectify time to destroy 1 year otherwise they'll go for whatever layer undercover now he says that science that hidden answer will keep the slave that position slave 1 point is that there's no war for this 2 points that you have no war to ontology which means there is no war where that position cannot change and you say divisibility is but 1 point I'm not if I'm just if you say my position refine whiteness if I'm refine whiteness that means it gives you a lot of ground because you can just read critiques like you did in this round against that which means there's no reason that your interpret necessarily solves now the case okay Stone easily takes out this critique. You cannot possibly win this critique by dropping all of my framing issues. It means that your critique is not unique, stable, so still exist in the world alternative. It also means that pseudo political dissent to the alternative, because you can see that only political debates are teach us the advocacy skills necessary to export their alternative in the real world, which means that it uniquely controls internally to alternative policy. Also, the press says evidence is game over. Takes out the critique and proves that this debate should not be about scholarship. It should be about the post-value advocacy of the plan. It means that I get to separate out of those things, and those should not be voting issues for me, which is especially damning because you can see the solvency in my favor. Now, you say that corner trimming is bad. 1 point the ballot, asking for the ballot is better since if I win, then I can keep reading this half, which means that we learn about whether survival strategy is better, and we learn about immigrants. Also, weight the education of the versus this argument because of the alternative we never reading this 2 point turn after pieces. The idea of better life by saying that they deserve to be the immigrants deserve to be treated equal, right to persons, which takes out argument. They say I penalize the trick of time. 1 point, there's no reason why the after full 2 point. You have not warranted the trick of time at all. Also, no more things have gotten better, like the civil rights movement. You say Theodore Lucifer comes from doesn't rely on this argument because it agrees Theodore Lucifer just that simulation is valuable. I've already made that argument. You say trouble to poor immigrants. 1 point, the after controls the direction of unique is because Trump's law is the only reason Trump's law is bad is because of plea bargaining, which means the asshole also no reason that not having numbers is key is a linear impact. The asshole solves some deportations. Now you say that the interference pursued on the black facts. 1, no warrant. This was after the time where it's ridiculous. 2 point, the Galloway argument turns because it says it's key to equal dialogue from all sides. Also, you can see the absolvency. The asshole the warrant drugs has the same 7 evidence. You can see that stops extinction from people in terms of drug offenses going to getting radicalized in prison and resorting to terrorism. That extinction outweighs also always on strength of link because it was conceded. All you have to do is put demons on the K and you vote after the K. First, he says one identity is linked to story. First, 1 point is that the ballot is not key for you because I'm going to be uncomfortable no matter what, which means that just giving you the ballot is not necessary to solve. 2 points that pre and post round solves calling me out. 3 point, no, like I never identified as white. I never said I'm uncomfortable being white to begin with. Also 4, no, like I wouldn't change my style like you said I would. 5, I broke new because it's semis of like stop whining now. Like you see the predicated on economy of gratitude. 1, I didn't ask them to be treated gratefully. Yeah, I just said that decrease suppression, which is normatively good at under my frame, which takes this out. You say that we can do the after that. Well, 1 point, this is an app argument. Press says that you should allow me to separate things like implications of my identity, which means the plan is a good idea. You go to have to say that I'm too attached to the ballot, but you're not mutually because I can care about the ballot and people and helping immigrants. 2 points that I'm crossed by the argument why winning the ballot is good for me because I can keep reading this up. You say debate is about producing scholarship. 1 point perm to the act. You don't understand the way racism affects black immigrants, which is what's rolled about is a good thing. Also say permutation to the act. Lines that the press has evidence that proves that we should just endorse the act policy and still recognize that the scholarship of the act is a bad thing.
Is that none? Okay, cool. 325, 320, let's see, sorry, 325, starting now. Reed, I have a question for you. What is this question about you don't identify as white?
No, I know. Your argument is that the reading of the app is a stance of comfortability in my identity. There's nothing about the app that proves I'm comfortable in my identity.
So again, okay, fine. But the argument that I heard from the 1EC was that I have to prove that you identify as white. So you're saying that that's not the argument?
Well, no. I do identify as white, but the link is that the app is in a position of comfort within their identity, which is not the link.
Okay, so fine.
Okay. The order is going to be case real quick. Actually, it'll be framing, like framing of the round, so overview type framing. Then case really quick, and then critique.
Where would you like me to flow this overview for framing? Should I put that on case?
Honestly, like I never know where to tell people flow overview. If you want, you can put it on a new sheet. That's just my thing. I put every overview on a new sheet.
So wait, it's overview case K.
Yeah. The overview's got arcs from
Say the order again.
Overview, case, critique.
Hold on 1 second.
The overview is just gonna be a generic overview of the round, but like,
Wait, I'm on the wrong page.
First in the bathroom.
What happened? What?
Is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not going for the first off, but you massively under for the second off now. But first, you can extend on the app that Fiat is lose, which means that you don't get away any of the impacts of the affirmative against the critique. You have full consent to the win. The judges vote affirmative. Nothing actually changes material. The conditions don't get better for people means that you don't have access to your impacts or your offense. Absent all your other, or even if you are winning all your other framing arguments, the point where you have considered this, they functionally go away. Also, you have full consent to the Mimi analysis, which says that the rejecting rate system is a D rule means that if we even win one link as to why the race you have to vote against the process of the flu to you have to vote against the process of the flu to reject that into the racism now. Now let's go to the case bit real quick. You can extend arguments on cases that they don't have any significance. His only response is that numbers aren't needed because it's a linear argument, but this doesn't respond to the argument that we can never quantify the affirmative impact. Means that at worst for me you're going to have to go negative on presumption. There is absolutely no way to tell. There's absolutely no way to tell if they or how many deportations are currently happening because of plea bargaining isn't how many deportations are actually reduced as a result of the affirmative. As a result of the affirmative means you can't quantify the impact of negative presumption if you have to get to that. We're good at the critique. We're really winning this round as a critique. You really miss it on the critique. You don't understand that the alternative is a floating pick. We say that we can still vote negative to the affirmative even if it's a good thing. We just vote against you and vote against you reading it. You are reasonably responsive to this. It's a good thing if he reads it because that means that he can continue to read this app. But the two responses, the point is that you can still continue to read this app if you actually care about the movement. Then you're not going to be attached to the ballot. You have considered this other 1 and 2B. You have considered this other the 1 and 2B point is that we have turned the idea of you reading this app as producing anything good. That was our first non-per evidence, which you really mishandled. Your only response to non-per evidence is his argument about how you don't necessarily identify as white or how we haven't proven that you are comfortable being white. But that is not the link that we're speaking about. We see that your comfort in your whiteness is exhibited when you get up and you read affirmatives like the one that you have disclosed and like the one that you read against me in this round because it proves that you are okay with taking these stories of disadvantaged folks to use for your own game. This was also the cold conceded. This was also in the cold conceded. The evidence that we read on case 1 about corner tripping. Now let's see. Line by line stuff. Let's go to the first non-per evidence. This is the argument that I just went for. You can extend the clean across the validity completely and so now. Off the second non-per evidence, this says that you create a climate of gratitude whereby you force non-white folks or disadvantaged folks to essentially be grateful for you for reading affirmatives like this and for trying to solve oppression for us, which means that you necessarily push out the folks who actually need to be the leaders of this movement. This argument when it means that you can definitely very easily vote negative on the floating page. You can vote negative to endorse the affirmative advocacy, but do it with me voting for me now. Also, Okay. The Mimi analysis. He's probably going to try to extend his. Framing to take out the critique. He's extending arguments about why necessarily we should only evaluate the post-fiat policy options of the app. But A point is cross-apply the fiat argument. B point is at the point where you've conceded Mimi. This is a very explicit. This is a very explicit layering strategy. It means that we are controlling the internal link to you accessing your post-fiat offense in the first place because it is a question of who has accessibility to. That debate means that you don't get to leverage that at all in the 2A art now. Also, you make an argument that this is not necessarily a debate about producing good scholarship, but our Sexton analysis very clearly turns that the method of debate, and you just don't respond to Sexton. You just repeat the tag from the 1C. Now let's see. Also, every link that we want is a disadvantage to any permutation. There's no. Also, you have to prove why there is a net benefit to a permutation over the floating pick, which you absolutely haven't done. So there's no reason to prefer a perm over the floating pick. Yeah. Okay. So overview to the round. It breaks down really simply. He's not doing enough work. The top layer is the critique. You've conceded the Mimi analysis indicates that racism is the highest layer of the debate. That's where the round gets resolved. Off this analysis, you have conceded you're not doing nearly enough work on the first and upper evidence. You misunderstand the evidence as you having to say that you're comfortable with whiteness. No, it is the way that you have performed whiteness in this round that is the link. This is the link that you do not respond to. The second upper evidence, the economies of gratitude, does not get responded to. It's also going to be a disadvantage to voting affirmative, even if you don't buy it as a linkage of critique, or if you think that I'm using the alternative. It means that when you have white people at the forefront of these movements, it creates this sense of feeling and minorities that they have to be grateful to the white people for being in the movements, and it pushes the minorities out of those movements. This is also going to be an independent net benefit to the floating pick. It means that you can just vote for me to do the affirmative if you think that the affirmative does end up being a good thing, but just to reject Reed. Sorry, Reed. And then, let's see, the Sexton analysis impact turns your framing. We say no, it's not a question of the post-fiat policy option, it's a question of scholarship. This was also, or your post-fiat framing of the round is also taken out by the fact that you've conceded fiat as illusory. It was a really big mistake from the 1AR. Don't let them get away with, it would be really impossible for you to vote on the AF at that point. But even if you were still inclined to vote on the AF, you would have to vote negative presumption because Reed is not doing near enough work on this argument that the affirmative doesn't have significance. You can say it's a linear argument, but that does not do anything if you conceded that we cannot quantify your impacts. Santa's gift to the judges this year is an easy 3-0 for the Niko. Thanks.
Okay. AF critique. Is everyone good?
Yep.
All right.
The biggest problem with this webinar is that his entire strategy is reliant on the critique being a floating pick, but this problem with this is a speech too late. You've conceded an argument out of the 1AR extension of the press's evidence, which means the floating pick is an apt argument, because the argument is that the representations of the F should not be a reason to vote, rather the effects of the plan should be a reason to vote. And you conceded that even if you prove that the representations of the F are a bad thing, I should be able to sever out of those and drop the negative representations and the post-fiat policy of the F, which means that if you think the floating pick is a good idea, then whoops, you have to vote affirmative, because that was my argument and you made it a speech too late. Now extend the framing issue out of the extend the conversion evidence. You say that you contemplate the fairness bad argument, but no, you never warranted fairness bad, and also you considered fairness good, which was the Galloway evidence. You don't get to just make all these claims in the 200 without actually warranting any of them. Now, you say that fiat is illusory, which means I don't get to weigh the impacts. No, this does not answer the implication of Coverstone. Coverstone says fiat may be illusory, but it's still a valuable practice in debate to simulate policies, because that teaches us to export their alternative better down the road. This is a reason why policymaking is uniquely good. I don't have to, also a reason why the case outweighs it. If you don't grant him the floating pick argument, that means you should just vote on the case versus the critique, because it's not a question of scholarship rather policymaking. You say that you can see the Mimi analysis, which means the racism and D-rule. Yes, I agree that rejecting racism is good. It's just a question of racism within scholarship or racism within post-fiat policies. If I win the press's evidence, that means that it definitely should just be a question of policy making. Yes, scholarship is important, but it should not be a round winner, which is the reason the press's evidence is a game winner for me, because it proves that yes, you can reject the F scholarship without voting negative, which is the reason why the floating pick is my ground. Now you say we can never quantify the F impacts. This is ridiculous. There's no reason anywhere in this debate he explained why quantifying the F is key. You can see that it is linear. The F still decreases a couple of plea bargains, which is a good idea. You should definitely vote F on a risk of solvency. Now you say it's a question of accessibility. This is a new argument. You never warranted why the F form of politics is inaccessible to black folk. Again, this is just a claim without a warrant. You're literally grandstanded for that entire 2 hours without actually answering my argument. I'll go to the critique. First of all, he says the case of floating pick 2 issues. I've already explained why the floating pick should be background, but at the very worst case scenario, if you don't buy the press's argument, that means you should just reject his argument because it's new in the 2 hours, which means that at that case you just compare the F versus the alternative, in which case you vote F because you can see the Coverstone analysis turns the alternative, which means that it definitely does that way. Now you say that it's not, you say that the link is not about me being comfortable, but then you extended the link as a reason why I'm comfortable in my identity. There's no reason why I'm comfortable. At very best, that means that his link is based on some completely unverifiable notion of comfort that you have no jurisdiction to vote. It also means that he has incredibly small strength of links. You have no idea whether or not I was comfortable when I was reading 1AC, which means that you should just vote F on strength of link, because you can see it 100% of solvency. You see it 4 times ways to be grateful for the F. This was not warranted well enough. You can see that there's no reason why I'm asking the non-immigrants to repay me for the F. I'm just saying it is normatively good because of the oppression framework, which I crossed by in the 1 hour, which means that you do not get to go for this argument. He says everything he just said to the prim, but no, the press's evidence does not link in because it literally separates out of all the discursive and representational arguments that he says are bad. Look, that is the biggest reason you're going to be putting F in this debate is because the entire 2NR went for this Hail Mary about it being a floating pick, but you dropped that was F ground out of the 1AR. This debate should, even if scholarship is important, the fact that the F had bad scholarship means you should reject that and still vote F on the consequences of the F plan. I've won that there's solvency. Even if you don't buy this prim to the F argument, there's still reason, I'm still winning the weighing on comfort zone. That's why that turns the alternative, which means the net benefit would, to the case would obviously that way. Also, the links were incredibly sketchily extended into an hour, so at best you should just err F on strength of solvency. But you should vote F on Prestes because it is the floating pick. Okay.
Alright, we'll do words and RFDs. Congrats to both debaters making it to semifinals of the John E.D. Holiday Tournament. It was a great debate. That being said, it is a 2-1 decision for the affirmative from Lexington.
I think the floating pick solves. I think that your Prestes 97 evidence is not evidence you should be reading. I read the context of that evidence, and I think there's a very big disjunct with the way that you're explaining how you get to sever all of your representations and discourses versus advocating permutation that may be incompatible. The example the evidence gives is like a state's counterplan permutation being able to resolve a federalism net benefit, and why that if the negative can kick out of contradictory positions, you should be able to do that to produce some equity. That's not what happens in this debate, and it's kind of weird disjunctive because I thought your evidence is going to be like, we should be able to sever our reps, but that's not even what your evidence says. Your evidence says it should be a legitimate kind of permutation, and if there was a theory debate, that would make a lot more sense to me, but it just like doesn't make very much sense to me why you should be able to do that. I think there's not an answer to, it's not that you benefit off of the economy that you create, but that you create that economy. So like, it's nice that you don't cash in on us, but that doesn't change what the link argument is and what the number evidence seems to be. And I think that even though the negative doesn't say it's not about whether you cash in, I think their argument has continuously been, but you create this economy. And I think that the pick, which is just like all the advocacy of the AF minus your white ass is enough to solve. And there's not enough like offensive arguments as to why your positionality might be important, why it's good for white people to contest these things in the 2AR or like anything like that. And so this permutation doesn't really make sense, and you don't have very much offense against this critique.
Sure. I felt differently about this Prestes evidence. Well, I do think that this evidence is actually pretty fucking trash. Probably another link to the K. But what I will admit is that there's just no answer to this argument at all in this debate. Like no response, no even a mention of it by the negative. And I think this complicates two things for me. First is, I think that it complicates my ability to vote negative on the floating pick argument because I think that there's a possibility of being able to sever, and a possibility of being able to sever the several parts of the AF. Secondly is I think that this complicates my ability to only focus on the scholarship portions of the AF and also focus on the policymaking portions. I don't think there's a really good warrant in this debate as to why scholarships should be first. I think the extension of Sexton into 2NR is like, I don't think that it's sufficient in this debate because I think that I kind of go back and look through my flow for it again. I think that the furthest that you get is like there should be scholarship. It should be a question of scholarship, but I don't have a warrant as to why that comes before the ask one about like policymaking should be how we view the debate. And so underneath that frame of like policymaking versus the alt, I don't necessarily see like two points. First is if the floating pick is not true, we get the way the AF versus the alt. I think the AF action in and of itself is not challenged in this debate. So I think essentially that's why that's where my decision lies. Secondly, is I don't know the impact in this debate, so to speak, for the negative. I think that your argument is just that like there is a politics of gratitude. And black people are grateful, people of color are grateful, but I'm not necessarily sure what the implication to that is. Secondly, I'm not necessarily sure what the implication to this Wahili cross application is either. I think that also kind of begs a lot of question on the warrant of that argument. So essentially, three things need to change for me. First is I think that you need to diversify and layer your link arguments, i.e. like why does Wahili impact Nomper? Because I think it does. I think it genuinely does. I think pornotropin is actually a really smart like kind of panel.
Happens in this debate too.
I don't think that happens thoroughly enough for my ballot. I don't know why what the impact or implication to it is other than an extension of just like Wahili, just as Wahili. Secondly, I think that because of this like concession of this Prestes stuff, that it complicates my ability to vote on the floating pick, but I think that this should be where the link debate is in this entire debate. I think this is like, I think that is whiteness. Like the ability to be like severing is whiteness. And not even just disclosure. I would have been like kick the intern, cross apply all these impact terms about whiteness and fluidity and all that shit to the ability to sever. And then I think that kind of is like a game over for this debate. I don't know how I vote after that. And then I just think that there needs to be just a better mitigation of some of this app stuff. But I think that even in a world where like even in a world where the app maybe like tangentially good, I guess. I think you should to some type of mitigation to the process of the app and why the app is bad. I think that can happen through impacting the Wahili stuff a bit better in this debate. Also, like, or implications as to why that hurts the policy-making aspect of the app. But other than that, I just think that there just needs to be a bit more impacting in context of impacting in context of the link and why this outweighs the app or why this should be weighed against the app. But other than that, I don't see much of a reason not to affirm this.
So I have many questions.
Sure.
But a quick question on like the floating pick debate. It seems like your RFP around that part was that you think that
you don't give
severance is.
I don't think you get one
because of this
precedent evidence.
Right.
Yeah.
So can he so the floating pick wasn't like any part of like. It wasn't the reps per se.
His argument was just that you need to focus only on the policy-making action, only on the action in and of itself, or the act in and of itself.
Shoot, do you think? So you think that we're?
I don't think we challenge that. I don't think that there's ever an argument that like the act is bad. But I don't think that never happened. I think read is bad. That's the whole debate. I never think that there's ever a question of whether or not the act is good or act is bad.
So then, my next question then is the arguments on accessibility, the controls the internal link to your policy-making crap,
What
and
access
the other illusory.
What access stuff?
What
access stuff? What accessibility debate?
So like maybe like if he is
I don't think there's
getting
any.
these.
It's like maybe literally like we can't foster or like found like a legislative order, right, or policies when there's like some type of race, like risk of a racist backdrop.
That's
Okay,
not
that argument
That's not
come out in the debate because if he would have said that, he would have been like, that's not unique. It's that would have been a debate. I'm sure the young man would have had some response.
Yeah, that's not a debate. That's not a debate.
That's not what he said.
I think for me the issue is just warranting. I think if there's more of a broad warranting of your implications and stuff, I think this can go your way. Like I see why this is a 2-1. Like it makes sense. But I feel like if there's more warranting on the impact level, I think I could go negative. I just don't think that there is.
I tend to see the round the pretty similar way to Devane, and I will say I think that the Prestis evidence is really bad. I agree with Jyleesa. But yeah, at the point where it's not contested out of the round, like that's a problem. And I also think that he spins it in such a way that makes sense. But for me, I start at the weight level of the debate, and I think that I have a hard time stomaching giving you any offense because you're extending these claims like you're comfortable in whiteness. You force some folks to be grateful for you, and I think it's ironic that in the 2NR you accuse Reed of extending tags and that it just seems like what you're doing. There's no warrant for the link. There's no contextualization to Reed's performance. You are just asserting that he's doing these things. I don't think there's contextualization enough. I also think that the Memi explanation is really poor, bouncing off the discussion that just happened. I mean, it was like racism is AD rule, vote neg, and I'm like, there was no extension of Memi beyond that tagline. I don't think your Coverstone arguments are really all that much better warranted. They make more sense to me internally, so I'll give them deference. But especially if your opponent is like not warranted in a framing argument, you should point that out and point that you have a better warrant, because I think you do. Yeah, at the end of the day, like you did not extend the. I don't even if I grant you access to the floating pick. Like, you don't even extend the alternative in the first place in the 2NR. It seems like the new argument is unfair. And it also seems to prove his point about why we should endorse the app. And I'm not going to vote negative without a better win story or impact calculus to contest that, let alone like an answer to that specific evidence. Just as a general comment, Niko, I think that was my biggest criticism for you is like you did a good job like collapsing out of arguments, but you need to like put depth on them. And then
Wait, so I have a question.
Yeah.
So are you saying that literally like the 2NR was just like, I'm just going to extend a tagline and I'm not going to do any analysis or win, is what you're saying?
I mean, I'm not saying he did no weighing or
Well,
analysis. I'm
that
saying it was
seems to be
not
what you just
sufficient.
said.
Okay, sure. Like if you want
Okay,
to ask
so you did say that.
all right, Angela. Like whatever, dude. Like if you
I'm
want
asking a question.
Yeah. I'm saying that like if you want to characterize like there was zero.
But that's why I'm asking
zero
you for your
warrant.
characterization of your argument.
Right, yeah, like I'm saying
But
that.
I'm lacking one.
Yeah, I'm giving it to you, but you just keep talking over me. Honestly, I'm not really interested in getting into
Can you explain the argument?
Yeah, like the 2NR extended the taglines of the two knocker cards and like
Right.
did not have a warrant or contextualization to have. Like, it just seems that simple. And then, like, to the affirmative, you know, Reed, this is almost the same comment I gave you in the last one, where it's like, a lot of your framing extensions are coming off of the app, and they're really good, and they're really well implicated in the 2AR, but I'm like, if that stuff is conceded, put it on the K-flow and start contextualizing. That's how you get ahead in the debate. Because again, at the end of the day, I'm like, sure, we can say like, oh, Niko, you didn't weigh enough, you didn't warrant enough, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm only marginally giving the ballot to you. You know, like that coverstone stuff, the Prussian stuff, like it needs to be more than just like a really, you know, put the extension not implicated in the 1AR. Yeah, those are my two thoughts.
Right, thanks y'all.
Yeah.
I think the Prestes evidence says the opposite.